Hi guys, it's Lauren. Welcome to welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am going to be telling you guys about the tragic death of Cayley Mandadi. And this one is a doozy. I have a lot of information. I have a lot about the trial. I have a lot of photos, and I just have a lot to talk about in general. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Cayley Anita Mandadi was born August 26, 1998 in Webster, Texas. She attended the Clear Creek Independent School District, and in 2016 she graduated from Clear Creek High School. She loved the filmmaking club, and she volunteered for an organization called Faithful Friends Animal Assisted Therapy Ministry. After high school, she went to Trinity University in San Antonio, and she was also on the cheer team. She was also part of the Chi Beta Epsilon sorority. I think I said that right. Her family said that her life was joyful, full of love, compassion, beauty, and intelligence. And in early 2017, she met Mark Howerton. She was originally dating Jeff Burcham, but the two were on again, off again for a while, and they officially broke up in August, and then in October, Mark and Cayley started dating. Jeff said that Cayley has told him about Mark's violent behavior. In September 2017, Mark had trashed her dorm room. She told Jeff that Mark had slammed her head in the passenger side window of his car. One of Cayley's sorority sisters, Dominique Hussein, said that Mark was really nice to Cayley at first. She did confirm that he did trash her dorm room, and he even threatened to throw her off a balcony. She said that she thinks Mark deals and uses steroids because he used the excuse roid rage as the reasoning for doing what he did. And she said that Cayley was really scared of him. There were also times where he had thrown her clothes into trees, smashed a glass door, and even smashed her laptop. Campus police were called, and he was actually banned from campus. And this was all because she wanted to go to a party and went to a party that he said she couldn't go to, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Another sorority sister, Ariana Conway, said that she had noticed bruises all over Cayley's legs. When she asked about them, she said that Mark had caused them. She also told police that there was another instance where Mark had taken Cayley's phone, so Ariana went with her to get it back, and Mark was very aggressive. Another instance is where he had taken a gun out of a glove box and he started waving it around and basically threatening to kill some of Jet's friends. Another witness to some of this abuse was Morgan Sampson, who was Cayley's roommate. She said she had witnessed Mark lose his temper and literally shove her up against a brick wall during an argument. On October 29th, 2017, Morgan tried to FaceTime Cayley, but Cayley didn't answer. Mark did. Mark answered from inside a car and said she can't talk right now and quickly hung up. That day, the two had been attending a Malaluna music festival, and Mark said that they had been partying for 2 days straight by that point, and they had also taken some Molly and ecstasy. He said that they had gotten into an argument, so they left the festival to discuss it in the car. And sources say that this argument was about Cayley's feelings for Jet, her ex-boyfriend. So Mark's version of the story of that night goes like this. She supposedly agreed to go to Houston with him. She supposedly agreed to drop out of college to be with him. She had no belongings with her except the clothes on her back, and he told her he would buy her whatever she needed. They drove to Houston, but stopped at a Valero gas station just outside San Antonio. He said that they had makeup sex in the car and that it was totally consensual. I won't go into detail, but he did, saying it was very rough. And I feel like it's a little odd that he felt the need to mention it was consensual. If you're dating a girl, why would it not be consensual? And it obviously doesn't mean that there has not been times where a girlfriend or boyfriend takes advantage of the fact that they're in a relationship and forces themselves on their partner. But I just thought it was odd that he felt the need to specify it was consensual. Unless the police asked. Maybe they asked, but if he willingly gave that information, it's just a little suspicious. Anyways, she told him that afterwards she did not feel well, so she didn't put her clothes back on. She eventually passed out in the passenger seat and she was snoring, according to Mark, so he really had no concerns at the time, so he kept driving to Houston. Right before getting to Luling, Texas, he claims that he noticed she had stopped breathing. He attempted CPR before taking her to the hospital, and once he got to the hospital, she was unresponsive. She was naked from the waist down, covered in bruises, and bleeding from her vagina. Now, Mark was photographed when they got there, and his knuckles were bright red, and he had scratches on his arms. Now, one of Cayley's friends, Taylor Clements, said that she just had a gut feeling something had happened. Taylor and Cayley had been best friends since 9th grade, and they had a snap streak going on Snapchat. Cayley was a major morning person, so like by 8 o'clock in the morning, she would have her snap streak sent to all of her friends. So when 8 o'clock rolls around and Taylor has not gotten her daily snap, she gets slightly concerned. She was working at a library at the time, and in the back of her mind, she was constantly thinking, why have I not heard from her? Has something happened? The hospital staff did CPR on Cayley 7 times. Whenever her heart would start, she would just crash again. On October 30th, tests showed that Cayley's brain damage was way too severe to recover from, and there was 0 brain activity. On October 31st, she was taken off life support and declared dead. Cayley was an organ donor. Supposedly, when she asked about wanting to donate her organs, I think it was for like some type of driver's license or something at the BMV, not really sure, but she was very confused on why that was even a question. She was like, of course, I want to donate my organs. Like, that's a really stupid question. On November 3rd, an autopsy was conducted. Police decided to look a little bit more into their relationship. Supposedly, one of Mark's friends said that he wasn't really the type to want a girlfriend. He had heard from several people that Mark was very abusive towards Cayley. By this time in the investigation, Mark decided to get an attorney, John Hunter. And 3 months after Cayley's death, the autopsy report was finally released. She had bruising on her face, ears, and mouth. The medical examiner ruled that she died from blunt force trauma to the head and face, and this caused her case to be ruled a homicide. Her labia was also swollen, and she had scratches all around her vagina. She also had a hematoma on her brain. Supposedly, the only areas unharmed were the back of her legs and her back. In December 2017, Mark's friend, Wyatt Stevenson, was interviewed. He confirmed that he had purchased steroids from Mark, and supposedly the day that Cayley died, Mark contacted Wyatt, saying he researched what could cause a subdermal hematoma. He found that syphilis or extreme alcoholism could very well be a cause. Mark's friend, Landon Suggs, was also interviewed. He said that he had bought drugs from Mark as well, and that he knew he was selling to other people. He told police that Mark told him that he wanted to kill himself after he trashed Cayley's dorm room. And he even admitted that he was on steroids when he did it. So this backs up Dominique's statement that she thought he was probably on drugs. Mark told him that he lied to the police and that he had actually choked and slapped Cayley during sex. He also mentioned that the police did not take his burner phone and that he was able to hide it in a plant. February 26, 2018, Mark was arrested and charged with murder and aggravated sexual assault. He was released on Thursday, March 1st on $225,000 bail. His attorney, John Hunter, said that you don't typically see murderers take their victims to the hospital, but I partially disagree with that. You obviously don't see many serial killers take their victims to the hospital. They just ditch them wherever they feel like they should. But since Mark and Cayley were in a relationship, I feel like he probably knew that it would look a lot more suspicious if he didn't do anything about it, since everyone knew that they were together for that day. So in this situation, I definitely disagree with the attorney, because any murderer who is trying to make himself not look guilty could easily take their victim to the hospital. Now we're moving on to the first trial. The first trial took place in December 2019, and Mark pled not guilty. A lot of people were adamant that this was going to be an open and shut case, no questions asked. But John Hunter said that there were a lot of mistakes made in this investigation. Alright, this might be where it gets a little messy, maybe a little confusing, but I'm going to try my best to go through the prosecutor's side and the defense side. Alright, so the prosecution alleges that on October 29th, 2017, Mark forcefully took Cayley into his car where he sexually assaulted her and beat her, causing a fatal brain bleed. Cheryl Lane was driving an ambulance up to the hospital when she saw a car in her rearview mirror. She said that it starts honking, flashing its lights, and somebody starts screaming and yelling. She said she saw her pants and clothes on the floor by her feet, and that she obviously wasn't breathing. She had bruises all over her body, and that is when Cheryl started CPR. Now, the defense comes in and says that the bruising was caused from the CPR and other things that the hospital staff had to end up doing in order to get her life-saving measures. The defense also says that there are no eyewitnesses that saw this alleged abduction and the in-between events from the music festival and the hospital. Obviously, the prosecution mentioned that Mark's knuckles were very red as if he had been punching something, and the defense says that the medical staff claims they saw no bruising on her face, but did on her thighs. They also said that the physician treating her was treating this like a drug overdose. Mark allowed the police to search his Mercedes without issue and found a gun and marijuana. And the defense said, why would he just willingly let them search his car if he had nothing to hide? He was repeatedly asking about updates on her, and her ribcage was also broken, proving that CPR does cause injuries that severe. Now, the prosecution mentions that in his last interview with police, Mark actually changed his story. He originally said they had sex at the Valero gas station, but now he's saying they had sex in an empty parking lot that was over 40 miles away from that gas station. Now, obviously, that's such a little detail to lie about, but the fact that he lies about such a small detail like that makes you wonder what else is he lying about. Now we're coming back to the incident I mentioned earlier about how Cayley wanted to go to this party, but Mark said no, and she went anyways. Cayley's roommate saw him throw her up against a brick wall. Her neighbor, Caro Cortez, said that when she was gone, he heard a male voice saying, "I'm going to smash your face in," and he heard lots of banging. One of the campus officers, Roderick Lewis, was called to investigate, and when he got there, as he was walking down the hallway, he saw a male leaving the room. Mark said he was alone, and the officer asked if he could enter the room just to kind of look around, and Mark was very hesitant. He argued, he said, "No, this isn't my place, this is my girl's place, like I can't just let you in," but eventually he finally stepped aside and the officer kind of forced his way in. Needless to say, the room was completely torn apart. Cayley got super pissed, so she just cut off all contact with Mark, but this just made him even angrier. He even Snapchatted her a picture with a pistol in his mouth that said, "I will commit suicide if you don't return my calls." This then turned into, "I will commit suicide if you break up with me." However, Cayley had told her ex-boyfriend Jet that she wanted to get back together with him. She even texted him saying, "I'm literally in love with both of you." So the defense comes back and says, well, she clearly is not sure what she wants. She told Jet that she was going to break up with Mark at the music festival. He was then asked if she seemed nervous to break up with him, and he said yeah, she seemed super nervous and worried. When Mark went to go pick her up for the music festival, she wasn't there at the time, and this got on Mark's nerves. He was very annoyed. He said he didn't want to wait on her, and in fact, one of Mark's friends was with him and testified that he got progressively angrier. He did not want to wait on her. Once Cayley showed up, they got into an argument, and he was like, "Where were you?" She never really responded, so this made him even more upset. At the festival, Jet was also there, and he said that he saw Cayley and Mark going to go get drinks. And he said Cayley looked like uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be there, and that she was kind of going against her wishes. She tried stepping away from him, but he hooked his arm around her and forced her to keep moving with him. Now we're jumping back to the defense, where they say the amount of drugs and alcohol consumed is definitely enough to cause serious damage that can cause fatalities. They took a lot more than they needed to in order to feel the effects. The defense claims that this whole thing was an accident, and they also say that Jet lied about what he saw that day. Jet admitted that the statement he originally gave the police and the statement that he gave to the grand jury and the statement that he's giving at this trial were different, and that he basically lied. Cayley's stepdad Lawrence and mother Allison said that he probably did exaggerate the story a little bit, but the key word is exaggeration. They said that they still think Jet is telling the truth to a certain extent, and that he just exaggerated it in order to get the police to respond a little more quickly and urgently. The defense shows many pictures of large bags of marijuana in Jet's possession, and he was actually on probation for a drug charge, so that's why this is so significant. They asked him about distributing to other students, and he pled the fifth. Then he was asked about documenting these materials, and he also pled the fifth. 47 minutes of cross-examination, and Jet pled the fifth 30 times. He was also offered immunity for his testimony, so why plead the fifth? The defense says that this questions his credibility. And they also say that he was also accused of sexual assault at one point. Now back to the prosecution. When Cayley did not show up for her sorority meeting, that's when some of her sorority sisters got a little concerned. And that's when, like I mentioned before, they started calling her, but Mark had answered, said she can't talk right now, and then hung up. Dominique then got a Snapchat from him saying, "Go f*** yourself, you stupid." Dr. Dana came to the stand, and she confirmed that she was able to get a very close look at the skull during the autopsy. The prosecution asked if it was a skull fracture, and she said no. The defense says that there were no fractures to the eye sockets, nose, and face in general. So they tell the jury that this brain bleed could have been caused from a fall at another time. They said that it shows a skull fracture consistent with a fall. And this is all coming from Dr. William Anderson, who took the stand, and he had reviewed the autopsy and photos because he was a forensic pathologist and former medical examiner as well. He had conducted over 8,000 autopsies. They also mentioned that the bruising can be caused by internal bleeding, prep for the organ donation, or like the CPR and being so long without a heartbeat. The defense also claims that 3 separate observers say they didn't see any bruising in the face area when they arrived at the ER. This is when Jason Wallich takes the stand, and he's a pharmacologist and an expert in Molly. Apparently, there were 980 nanograms per milliliter in Cayley's body, and that is considered very high. High blood pressure from MDMA can cause increased risk of hemorrhaging. So the defense says that from her brain injury from the fall that she supposedly had in the past, the MDMA made it fatal. This trial did not change Cayley's mother's theory on what happened to her daughter. She still thinks she was beaten to death, and only hours into deliberation, the defense gets a phone call. This is a witness that nobody knew existed. It was a woman who worked at the front desk at the hospital the night Cayley was brought in. She says she saw her pale white legs with no bruises on them. She thinks the EMT's testimony is wrong. However, the judge says that it's far too late to bring in a new witness, and after 2 days of deliberation, the jury comes back with no verdict. They couldn't come to a unanimous decision, and I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that it was 8-4 in favor of guilty, but once again, it wasn't unanimous. So, with that being said, a mistrial was declared. Before the second trial, the attorney filed a writ of habeas corpus in hopes to dismiss the indictment. They accused the assistant district attorney trying the case of prosecution overreach. This is because of a witness who lied in 2 police reports and to the grand jury after being sworn in. A 3-judge panel denied the appeal on June 15, 2022. Now, Cayley's mother, Allison, and stepfather, Lawrence, decided to take a little bit more time to investigate themselves. Mark sold the car in 2018, but they found the owners and bought it back. They were a little hesitant at first, but once hearing about Cayley's story, they agreed. Lawrence had friends in automotive forums, so they were able to track down the VN number for him. The couple was focused on an autopsy photo showing a small bruise shaped like a dot above her right ear and then a larger bruise above her left ear. They believe that Mark reached from the driver's side over to the passenger side, hit her in the head, and made her bang her head on the lock of the door. Allison and Lawrence made reenactment videos and photos using the evidence that they had, and it was a near perfect match. The second trial date was set for May 23rd, 2023, and Mark was still posting on social media at this time. He would say things like, "Come at me legally and I'll beat you up," or "Wow, 75% of people think I'm guilty. That means 75% of people can suck my." When the trial was about to start, the judge said he would allow for the video reenactments to be shown in court. However, the parents would not be able to sit in on the trial if they submitted it. They would technically be considered witnesses, I guess, so they withdrew the video. Now, the first trial had one charge and one charge only: felony murder. However, the second trial has brought more charges to the table, including aggravated assault and criminally negligent homicide. For the second trial, the prosecution added a witness who was an expert in domestic violence. They told the jury that Mark was an abuser who manipulated and isolated Cayley, became angry, and lost control. Mark was found not guilty of murder, but he was found guilty of aggravated sexual assault, causing serious bodily injury. He was sentenced to a maximum of 20 years in prison, and he's eligible for parole in 2033. Allison still visits her daughter's room every single day. She sat at her desk working on a project, and in September of 2019, the Clear Alert bill was passed. Now, there are Amber Alerts for children under the age of 18, and there are Silver Alerts for seniors, but there's nothing in between. So Cayley's mom wanted to change that. Her daughter was 19 years old. She was too old to be considered for an Amber Alert, and obviously way too young to be considered for a Silver Alert. So the Clear Alert is for ages 18 to 64 years old. And lastly, Taylor Clement wanted Cayley at her wedding as a maid of honor and to be the godmother of her future children. But unfortunately, that will never be able to happen. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. I don't really care. Subscribe if you're new. Comment down below videos you would like to see next. Let me know what you think on this case. Do you think Mark did it? I personally think all the signs are pointing to him. With his temper, I feel like every boyfriend, or even girlfriend for that matter, who has that bad of a temper that you lose your shit whenever your girlfriend does something even remotely different than what you want her to, it's game over. Get out of there. If you are a victim of domestic violence, get out of there. I know it's easier said than done, but there are resources out there. Please get help. All of Cayley's friends knew this was going on. Even Mark's friends knew this was going on. But other than getting Mark banned off of the campus property, nothing really happened until it was too late. So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!